Okay, good morning.
Morning.
Hold on, let me get this out the way. Okay. Um, so many things going on this Friday morning. So thank you for setting aside a time to discuss your supervisor evaluation held earlier this week. And so
Mhm.
your lesson reflection, I looked over your scores. I went back and align a few things with the video. Thank you for sending that as well. And regarding your video, in the future, when you record, if possible, can you place the camera, where I was sitting
Mhm.
on that end of the classroom so we can get a wide perspective or view of the entire classroom? But
Right.
there were certain things that I wanted to capture, but I could not get it from your view. And of course, when I went back to my video camera, it was not the highest quality. But we're still gonna use your video for a couple of things. But just remember that in the past. But I do appreciate you setting that up and sending it to me. So we're gonna go over the lesson. My first question is going to be, even though you have submitted your reflection, I want to hear you talk through those areas that you felt you did well, and
Mhm.
and areas um, that may be included in your reflection, or maybe even after you submitted this, there's still some things that are kind of going through your mind that you want to talk about, and areas of reinforcement or and refinement as well. Okay. For the for this purpose, for this semester, we've been asked to just identify one. Supervisors have been asked to identify just one area of refinement and one area of reinforcement to focus on as we go into the second semester. But I'll let you know that there's several areas I felt like you did well. And so even though I may highlight only one, it's only because
Mhm.
requirement, but I will speak to the other ones. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna turn it over to you. And this is just a conversation. We're just going to, as mathematicians, talk about math and what you did. Okay. So
Yes.
I'll turn it over to you. Go ahead.
So one area of growth that, or not area of growth, one area of that I think I do well in is setting up opportunities for students to talk about math in the activities. That's one thing I'm big about is like creating opportunities for students to talk and discuss. I think they learn a lot from each other
Okay.
when they have that opportunity. So setting up having those small groups, presenting a question that they can talk about in their small groups with the people in their group, and then work it out together. And it's nice to see how receptive the students have been to that.
Okay.
Like they challenge each other's thinking. Like if one student in the group says something, they're like, oh, another student's like, oh, that doesn't sound quite right, or I don't agree with that. And I love how they're receptive to that, and they're comfortable with doing that.
And
Uh,
I love the way, I'm sorry to interject, but I love the way you characterize that. You're very nice in that assessment of how they speak to each other.
mhm.
But you're right, they do challenge each other thinking, but I don't know if it's just as pleasant as what you described.
That's true. Sometimes they can be a little bit.
Yes, that
I'm
was
like
that
you
was
can disagree in a little bit kinder way.
that group that was sitting in front of me. The girl just said, "Look, you wrong." And that don't make but it was good. They were talking about mathematics. But yeah, I agree with you. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just wanted to interject that.
Yes, I was saying the same thing with Dr. Anderson the other day when I was showing her the lesson, my lesson plan and everything and how it went, and
Mhm,
I was saying the same thing. But yes, that's one area I feel I've done really well in.
mhm.
Um, I feel like I can grow, an area I feel I can grow in, um, is being a bit more intentional with thinking about how students may interpret something. So, and I say that because I'm thinking particularly about the exit ticket
Okay.
and the question you asked them to explain why the intersection of the graphs represents the solution. A lot of them did not understand what that question was asking.
Mhm,
Um, and so a lot of them just didn't answer the question on their answer on their exit ticket at all. And so I was talking with Professor Anderson again yesterday, and she was saying maybe like maybe I could have worded it a bit differently, or maybe put it in the context of what we had already done, because it tied directly to what we
mhm.
had just done with the between the two students, Andre and Jason. So maybe putting it in that context, students would have understood a little bit more what the question was asking of them. Some of them understood the question, but I think the majority of them either are starting to get there or they just didn't answer the question at all.
Okay. And do you think, just in hindsight, do you think it's more so um, based upon the wording of the question, or maybe their lack of really grasping and understanding the skill or the concept, or a little both?
I think it's I think it's a little bit of both. I
Okay.
think maybe with that hair task we did, maybe I could, like you said, my pacing was a little bit fast, maybe slowed down during that segment.
Okay.
And really made sure that students were really understanding what the point I was trying to get across, and then maybe rewording the exit ticket question. Um, so that it wasn't so maybe it wasn't so wordy. I feel like it was a little bit wordy,
Okay.
looking back on it. So maybe consolidating that question a little bit better.
Okay. Hold on. I thought I had you. I'm gonna have to go back and look at that. I recall the question, I mean the activity. I just don't
Mhm.
recall how it was worded. Let me I'm gonna look
The
back at. Yeah, can you read it real quick? I
exit ticket question, is that the one you're asking about?
mhm.
So it said, in your own words, explain why the intersection of the graphs of two lines represents the solution to a system of linear equations.
Mm.
So even reading it now, it does seem a bit like a lot in one sentence.
Yeah, and it's a bit leading too. So how would you reword that though? Have you
Um, mm, explain why. I don't know. I guess maybe a better question, a better way to word it, been like in your own ways, in your own words, explain why why a point of intersection represents the solution to a system. I think the saying the intersection of the graphs of two lines is a bit wordy. So maybe saying explain why the point of intersection represents the solution to the system.
okay,
Maybe a bit better.
okay. And look, that's a good start, but also I've noticed in your reflection, you pointed out, which was very observant and right on point, that students, or would you say, okay, when to better understand a topic, a lot of students within the class are better able to understand a topic when it's presented in multiple connected ways. And this also provides multiple entry points into the lesson as students can engage with the representation that makes sense to them. Okay, so just keeping that in mind, and that's a great point. So throughout the lesson, you presented a couple of word problems, right?
Hmm.
With real world context. And the way that the problems were presented was, of course, in a word problem. So reading, consider this at the end of the lesson with the exit ticket. You're trying to assess their understanding, but what if you presented it in a different way? For
Hmm.
example, what if you rewrote that question to say, and I agree with Professor Anderson, keep the same context, referring to either the babysitting scenario or even the hair growth scenario, and say, Johnny's, I'm hiring a babysitter, and I
Hmm.
want to know if the solution 2, 3, and you can word it better,
Yeah.
is I want to know if I pay $2 and what I can't remember the scenario, but present the answer to them in the
Okay.
context of the word problem and ask them if this is true or false or something similar to that. That's off
Yeah.
the top of my head at 9 o'clock in the morning, but I think you get the idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess. Yeah. That makes sense.
So what happens is you're still assessing the same standard or the same concept, but you're changing the way that it's presented by now
Hmm.
giving them the answer and then having them work backwards to explain and also determine if that's true or false.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, just something.
Hmm.
It's something to. to consider. Okay. So, was there is there anything now you meant you said your strongest point? I got that notated. Is anything else in terms of areas that you felt like you were strong in?
Um,
And I'm pushing you here because, and it's not just with you, but most candidates always go to, okay, I can list 10 things that I can improve in because I can do this and I can do this. But I want to bring balance to that because there are certain areas that you did well, not that you can't continue to grow in, but I want to make sure that you're able to identify those things and call them out. So,
yeah.
can you think of anything else?
I think another thing as well is the questions that I present to students. Especially with this lesson, I think I had a lot of good questions planned
Okay.
to ask them that require them to explain their thinking not only to me but to their table, to their group.
Mhm.
And then to connect the work that we've done with equations in the past and identifying the independent and dependent variable and now bringing that back into the system of linear equations when you have two, looking at two at a time.
Okay.
So I think my questioning is another strong point.
Okay. All right. Let's go back to even before you turn on the camera and you start to execute the lesson. What about your instructional planning?
Um, in instructional planning, I I think I've definitely grown in being able to take the standard and create good objectives. That's an area I definitely can see my growth in over the past semester, and I
Okay.
feel like that's an area of strength for me
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
The thing, and then also creating good activities that match that. So doing the whole backwards planning that has been really helpful for me in connecting the activities to what I really want students to do and making sure that there's good alignment. So I've definitely grown in that area, and I think it's becoming an area of strength for me. One thing I still continue to struggle with is the modifications and
Yeah.
accommodation
Yeah.
for students. Yeah, that's just the area I'm still having to like grow in and yeah.
Yeah. Okay. But I can understand your rationale, but I think that well, actually, I know, and I may have said this to you in the pre-conference. The intention, the level of detail, the thought process that you have to undergo in order to present a cohesive lesson plan and is commendable. I don't know if I said that to you. I when I read the lesson plan and then we had the pre-conference, I could see alignment. I can see areas where you had really given thought, and I think also you not only consider like what's in front of you and what I have to teach and what I have to plan. You also bring in your prior knowledge of your students, your
Mm.
prior knowledge of activities that they've done well in and not so well in. I think you even kept along the lines of the hair growth problem because
Mhm.
you said you introduced that at one point before and they really got into it. So let me just
Yeah.
move that right into this activity and carry on with that. So that
Mhm.
shows great, in my opinion, planning skills, thoughtfulness, and detail. So I would definitely identify that as an area of strength for you. And
Thank
not only that, just to continue with the way that you executed it because
you.
sometimes there's a big misalignment between what I have planned and then what's executed, right? And I think, well, I know from my observation that it was very cohesive. So I think
Yeah.
that definitely instructional planning would be an area of strength for you. Now, differentiation and accommodation, modification, that's always an area that we have to grow in. I don't care how long you've been in the classroom, that and pacing are the two key areas that we always, and I say we because I'm still teaching, I'm still learning at this craft, that we have to be mindful of. So I would definitely include that. So don't forget, instructional planning is definitely one of your strong suits. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, so let's talk about a few things I want to just highlight to you, and I hope that um this is going to um uh, cooperate with me this morning. So let me go to first of all, let me see if I have the video queued at the right point. Is this it? Yeah, okay. So, okay, cross your fingers. Let's hope this works. Okay. Can you see your video?
Not yet. I don't know if it's still loading or not, but I
Okay.
can't yet.
No, you still nothing?
Mm-mm.
Are you serious? Okay, hold on. Let me try it again. Okay, let me get rid of that.
I can see it now.
Okay, perfect. Okay, now let's just see if the sound works.
So you can you can make a case for any one of these that doesn't belong. Okay, exactly. Your need.
Okay, so this is at the end of your do now or your bell ringer, and
Mhm.
have had an opportunity to discuss. At this point, it's about 3 to 4 minutes into the lesson, into the beginning of the lesson. And I want you to, you can't see the students, but you can kind of hear a few of their comments, those are closer to the camera. And I want you to, we're going to watch a couple minutes of this, and we're going to talk about this on the other side of that. But I want you to pay close attention to your your behavior, what you say, um, and how you say it. Okay. All right, here we go.
On the line, this which one? So this image. Oh, okay. What about like that right and they cross over the X. That would be one, right? So you can make a case for any one of those. Okay. So the whole point of this activity was not to find the right answer, but to get you all to be able to explain your thinking, right? So what you're going to be able to do for our lesson today. Okay. So right, so B right is because of the line crossing over. Yes, B's right. A could be right too. That's what I'm saying, because we have here A, C, and D, but we got B because the blue line crossing over there. Yeah, that's sure. Yeah. Okay, right. So go ahead and pull out your sheet, your systems of linear equations sheet. Have
Okay. What do you notice?
Um, I noticed that like the student, she was making her case, and this is one of my students, like she's very like when she thinks something, she's like she stands on it.
Yeah.
And so like he was making her case and then which was valid. And so I think I affirmed that, and then she was like, "Oh, so B is the right answer." And I was like, "Well, yes, but also like A could be the right answer." So like just trying to get them to see like there's not one right answer there.
Okay. And I understand the intent of the question, and I do agree that it calls students to think. It calls
Hmm.
a couple of students that I could hear on the video, but also when I was present, they were really trying to um, align their thinking with what they had learned already to justify their point. So you're getting all
Hmm.
those mathematical practices in, definitely. But what I wanted to highlight to you is two things. So in this case, all four could have been a solution or an answer to it, right? So you had one student who came up to the board again to make her point. This, she's making her point, right? Then there was another student who said, okay, well, so I think it was B. So B could have been an answer, right? So what happens is based on the student feedback that that concept of the answer that all four could be a solution was not
Hmm.
gelling for them. So
Okay.
I would encourage you just to take a minute or two, just as that student did, go to the board and show why A could be a solution, B could
Hmm.
be a solution, C and D. Because what's going to happen is there's some students that are not as vocal as those that are sitting closer to where you were, that are they're still wondering and pondering, well, how is it that C is the
Hmm.
answer? But if you take a minute or two just to explain it and elaborate, then you'll make that learning you solidify that learning and that concept development for them a bit more sound.
Okay. Yeah.
Make sense?
Hmm.
Okay. And the second piece I want to just point out is I believe that in your mind you were thinking, okay, I got a long lesson to get through. Let me keep moving. uh, and it's natural. That goes to pacing, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I can kind of sense because and I sense that because you did not leave the area that you were in. You were getting that the next slide together. You was like, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, okay, but all of them could be an answer. Let's go. That's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking. You know, that's what I perceived that you were thinking to yourself. So just take
Hmm.
a moment to yes, you have a plan. Yes, you have a ticker. And then you have me observing there. All of that's going on. But remember, the students in front of you drive the instruction.
Yeah.
Your lesson plan is just a guide.
Right.
Okay. And so if you need to take an extra minute or so just to reinforce a certain concept, make sure that that learning is solidified for them, then you should take that opportunity to do so. Okay.
Okay.
Because and in terms of being the evaluator or the observer, I'm not going to penalize you for that because I
Hmm.
understand, particularly in mathematics, you want to make sure that foundation is firm because you're going to build on it, right? And so
Yeah.
take a moment. It's not going to be a ding or anything against you in that regard. Okay, so that's what I wanted to highlight there for that particular um, part of the lesson. I because of the vantage point of the video recording, I wanted to just highlight several areas where you were circulating the
Hmm.
classroom and the types of questions you were asking, the
Yeah.
type of feedback that you were giving. I noticed consistently if and students had questions that you didn't go over to say, look, do this, do this, do this. And I was always guilty of this when I was a classroom teacher. When a student would call me over, the first thing I would do is grab the pencil out of his or her hand and start writing. And so you didn't do that, which was great. So you asked great questions to help lead them and further their thinking. But what
Yeah.
I did want to point out is if you noticed, uh, and I believe this was for the babysitting um, scenario. Yeah, well, I think it was
Okay.
because that's the second one. That the questions, at least from what I could hear from my vantage point, the questions seem to be similar. Two groups seem to have had the same types of questions or similar questions. And so
Okay.
whenever you see that you have a question that's reoccurring,
Hmm.
then that's an indication to you, okay, let me continue to assess, or maybe let me pull back,
Hmm.
everybody together, re-explain, restate, and then allow them to go back and re-enter into trying to problem solve.
Yes.
Because yeah, so
Hmm.
just be mindful of that. So as you're circling, again, you do a great job of that. The feedback that you get from students in terms of the types of questions they ask, the frequency of that same question may be an indication that there's some misunderstanding and some clarity is needed somewhere. Okay. One thing that I was hoping would be on your video, but it was not, at least you couldn't hear it. So this is towards the beginning of, or actually, I think it was the first scenario. And the group that was sitting like in the middle back, it was a young
Okay.
lady at the table there.
Hmm.
Okay, so they, as you were circulated, they had finished the problem, right?
Hmm.
And then they asked, well, can we move on? Can we go on? But and I don't recall exactly. You said we're going to discuss, but that particular table, I don't know what their academic level of is, but it seemed like they really got it
Hmm.
because it was it was context they were familiar with, or maybe they're just higher achievers than the others, but they were ready to move on. But what they
Hmm.
had to do was wait for everyone else to finish and then for you to allow the entire class to move on. So this goes towards differentiation. So
Yeah.
making sure that you have something planned in place for those early finishers. Okay. And I always say over plan. So even if you may not necessarily have a worksheet or online activity for them to go move on to, in your mind just have something. Well, let me change the values of the coefficients, make it more challenging.
Yeah.
Your time. Look, you all work on this, and that will allow you to continue to circulate and then help those students that are in need.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think Dr. Anderson told me the same thing yesterday. She was like, I could have added like an extension question.
Yeah.
And like you said, like changing the coefficients and making it more challenging
Mm-hmm.
for the
Mm-hmm.
student.
Yeah. Or even lead them into, I can't remember, at some point, um, you were talking about the lines being parallel. I believe that was towards the end. But see, that group, I don't know, you know them better than me. You may have been able to kind of preload that for them and say, okay, what happens if the coefficients are the same, or you presented a scenario when the coefficients are the same, kind of lead them into what happens when the lines are parallel and what does that mean for that context. So some
Yeah.
things you can kind of think on the spot and keep them
Mm.
going while you continue to bring those others along for the next portion of the lesson. Okay. So let's see. Let me see if I can pull. Uh, just one second. Let me see if I can quickly move to this part of a lesson. Okay. Okay.
Time when they're hitting the same length. Yeah. Okay, keep that in mind. Okay, we're gonna graph their two equations. So we have y equal.
Hold on one second. I'm trying to cue it up too. Yeah, one part.
We have here the intercept at 7. Anything else? They're different colors. They're different colors. Yeah, that's true. At a time. Huh? Hi, buddy. The solution to where both are the same. And that's why 47, our point 47 is a solution to our system. Does that make sense?
Okay, here we go. All right, so let me cue this up. Okay, again, I want you to just notice what you say and what you do and how you say it as well. So this is where you're explaining the Andre scenario. Okay, so move out the way. Okay, here we go.
We have multiple equations at one time. Okay? So we're talking about a solution to a system. Let's look at this. Okay, so this point here, this right here represents how long Andre's hair was at the start, right? This point is 0-3, right? 0-3. And this point represents what? Jason's hair after after the first month. Yeah. Okay. So each point is an equation, is a solution to each individual equation. We want to find a solution to both. So we're looking at a system. We want to figure out the solution to where both are the same. And that's why 47, our point 47 is a solution to our system. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay, let's do a little quick check. Okay, thumbs up if it doesn't make sense. Middle thumb if you're like, you have a question. Thank you. So means everyone should have a response. Thumbs up if you're good. Middle thumb if you're like, you have a question. We got 2 people with their thumbs up. Oh, but everyone else, we don't know what's going on. Oh. Okay. Again, thumbs up if you're good. Middle thumb if you have a question. Okay. What questions do we have? Or what part of this is kind of tricking us a little bit? Okay, what part do you not understand? Like, where does it get kind of confusing? The J and A part? Like what J and A mean, or the whole thing? Where I get the lines from? Okay, so good question. She was asking where we got these lines from, right? These lines represent our equations that we found for Andre and Jason. We just graphed our 2 equations on the coordinate plane. Yes? Okay. Then we found the point where they intersected. That's where they're equal. as a 0.47. Makes sense. Are we good to move on? Yes. Any other questions? You there? Yeah. Hey, any other questions before we move on? No. Okay, so what is 47?
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there. Okay, so what do you notice?
I'm also trying to think back to that specific moment. I think in that moment, a lot of students didn't respond, so I kept asking like, "Okay, what do you not understand? What's confusing?" Like, I think I repeated it like 3 or 4 times before I actually got a response from a
Yeah.
student.
Yeah. So what is that an indication of, you think?
Um, maybe maybe this group of students is a bit more reluctant to ask questions, or maybe um, yeah.
Okay, so I can see that they may be more reluctant to ask questions, but it may be that they don't know how to frame their question. They don't know,
Okay.
they don't know exactly what to ask because
Yeah.
I don't understand. So I'm still learning the terminology. I know I don't understand it, but I don't know if am I supposed to say I don't understand the graph, or am I supposed to say I don't understand the point of intersection? I don't understand how to set the problem up. And so in that case, what I want you to consider, especially when the responses do not come back as in the amount that you want, because you're right, you had to ask that question a couple of times. A couple of things you could have done there, I want you to consider. Rephrase the way that you asked the question, right? Sometimes if you restate it or rephrase it, maybe just changing a word or two can make it better resonate and hit with more students. The second thing is, again, this goes to pacing and also goes to you lending yourself to what students, the feedback that you're getting from students at that present time in the lesson. So even though you have reworked the problem, and I think at this point you may have said it 2 or 3 times, it's not registering with them. So sometimes it's good to just erase
Mm-hmm.
and do it again, as if it's a brand new problem. And it's okay to do that. And I know you may be a little reluctant because of that pacing clock that you have in your head. But
Yeah.
remember, the students in front of you drive that instruction.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's okay to say, look, let's just start over. And what you could also do is randomly call on students, because as you were standing there, I noticed you were scanning, and you were probably knowing those students because of your prior knowledge of students who may have a question, who may be struggling, but also may be, to use your word, reluctant to ask a question. So let's insert some of the cold calling in there. All right. And then you call on those students who may not have asked a question or be reluctant to ask a question, and you give them a very easy type question at a recall level to kind of get them engaged and get them into the learning process.
Okay.
Make sense? Like, for
Yes.
example, um, Andre, Andre is one of the people in the scenario. So how might we represent Andre? That's one of those easy toss questions. And you call on one of those students that's low performing, reluctant to speak, and they can just say A, great job. There's those little types of questions that's going to build up to rigor for those more advanced students that may still have questions, right?
Yeah.
All of this is happening real time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I noticed that you said in your reflection that you're hesitant. Would you say that? You don't necessarily like the thumbs up. Some,
Mm-hmm.
and I agree with you. I am not a fan of that at all, because it really doesn't give you a true assessment.
Yeah.
However, if you were to cold call on a few, or even
Mm-hmm.
those students that have their hands up, just
Mm-hmm.
insert different types of checks for understanding, so that you can get more student engagement, but also you can assess where you need to be, if you need to, or if you're ready to move on. and if students are ready to move on with you as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me just make sure I go through all my notes. So just my overall impression. Oh, I also wanted to point this out, and this kind of goes to checks for understanding. So you asked questions such as, and I try to keep a tally of this, but you asked when you're trying to assess if students understand, these are the types of questions that you ask. You asked in a question format, yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Are we good? Good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you all agree with that? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And then yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see, what else is it? Okay, so we're going to, and actually when I upload my final comments, I'm going to just provide you with different ways that you can check for understanding
Yes.
in the way that you pose the question. Okay. And also the way that you provide academic feedback. Again, you do a great job of circulating. And as you circulate, you're asking those questions and presenting the questions in such a way that causes them to either take a moment and think about what they have or either push them forward.
Mm-hmm.
But when students give you a response or lack thereof, you want to make sure that your feedback to them is what the rubric defines as high quality. So what that means is you always want to keep before the students the learning target, right? So in this case, it's graphing systems. And so the feedback, when they answer a question, be it right or wrong, if it's right, you want to reinforce it by tying it back to the learning target or
Mm-hmm.
whatever that specific skill that you're trying to reinforce. So for example, if they identify 4-3 and they say it's 4-3, and I think you may have done this at one point, you want to make sure that the terminology is correct. So that's an ordered pair, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the ordered pair is the solution to the system. And so when they give you the answer, you want to fine tune that. You want to say, yes, 4-3 is the solution to
Mm-hmm.
the system. Or if they say, oh, it's parallel lines, that's correct. Good job or great job, or however you want to phrase it. Yes, that is the slope is the same, so that represents parallel lines. So you want to just acknowledge that they are correct, but also tie it back to the skill or the content that you're covering that day. Okay, so that's what the rubric means when it says high quality.
Okay.
Like very specific and
Yes.
not as general as what I mentioned. Okay, so overall, again, just starting with the planning piece, sound planning, very detailed. I can see evidence of how you approach planning is very intentional. The activities that you use, the structure of the lesson was well planned out and executed as well. I could see you go from one problem to the next, and as you were building their understanding around systems and graphing. Um, Great job with circulating your conversations with the students, the questioning that you inserted as well. The relationships you had with students was evident. They were, even though you may have some that may be more vocal, I think at least I got a sense of the time that I was there that if they had a question or you called upon them, they were not reluctant to answer or to engage because of prior relationship and rapport that you have built with them. So that was evident. In terms of areas of growth, well, I won't even say growth, just continued development and refinement. Really want to look again at pacing,
Yes.
definitely pacing. And I would probably say pacing as well as the academic feedback. Okay.
Okay.
So you do well with questioning, and most times questioning and the academic feedback
Yeah.
align.
Mm-hmm.
So the questioning is sound. And we just want to make sure on the other end, what it's coupled with is just it aligns. So you
Yeah.
question, you get feedback, and I want you to be able to build off that feedback with specific high quality comments. Okay. In terms of engaging students, I noticed that there were several areas here, and we're gonna have to talk about this, man, that you scored yourself at a level 2. And I read your rationale.
Uh-huh.
I'm going to ask you a few questions. So,
Okay.
environment, level 2. And keep in mind the rubric says 2, at a level 2, you
Mm-hmm.
are developing. Okay. And if you recall, when we went through this at the very beginning of the semester, we highlighted those keywords, right? And
Yeah.
where's my rubric?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay, we go. So, what you notice or should notice is that, and I'm going to environment, which is 10. Okay, so what you're saying is you're moving toward a student-centered learning environment, and the emphasis is on teacher direction. Okay, let me stop sharing this. Okay, but let's look at the descriptors.
Okay.
Okay, so the aspiring teacher, according to level 2, encourages students to learn from their mistakes. Was that evident?
Um, I think at one point, I think a student did give a wrong answer when we had a whole class discussion. And I opened it up to the entire class. Okay, do y'all agree?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them said no.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and so then we reworked the problem. We talked about what the answer should be.
Yeah.
I think at that point it would have been good to ask the student who gave the incorrect answer, like, okay, do you kind of see why your student, like your peers say it's this, and how you got that?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. Okay. So, and I know that I'm looking at it from lived experience and a number of years of experience in the classroom, and you're at the aspiring teacher part entry point. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is really take a moment and think holistically.
Okay.
Okay, so what you did, you went to one specific point to say, well, no, I didn't do it. But
Mm-hmm.
think about holistically. As you were circulating, and students were may have the wrong, their approach may have been leading them in the wrong direction, or they had questions, and they were making the misunderstanding was there.
Mm-hmm.
How did you respond to that? Did you tell them to get up, give up, stop, you're wrong? What did
No,
what did you do?
I would ask them a question. Yeah.
And by asking questions, what were you doing?
Getting them to see like where they went wrong, and then directing them um to a down a better path.
So would you say, in that sense, you are encouraging students to learn from their mistakes?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Did you interact with students in a positive, generally positive manner?
Yeah.
Okay. Were you sometimes receptive to interests of the students and the opinions of the students?
Um, that one, I've had trouble thinking about what that would look like.
Okay. So, and let me give you, that's level 2. That's the description. That is the descriptor for level 2. For
Uh-huh.
level 3 is you are regularly receptive to interests and opinions of students. So
Mm-hmm.
given in the context of the lesson and what you had planned, right? So first of all, I think you met the interest part because of the scenarios that you brought
Yeah.
in. Okay. And then the opinions of the students. I recall several times, and I just showed you a clip where the student went up to the board and said,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
explain their reasoning.
Yeah.
And you didn't stop them.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't shut them down. And then there was another student to kind of piggyback off that.
Mm-hmm.
That's being receptive
Okay.
to their opinions or their line of thinking or their thinking process. Okay, so that's what that means. And I would dare say that you did not sometimes do that. I think you
Hmm.
do it on a regular basis.
Okay.
It's not once that you shut a student down.
Right.
Okay. So you see where I'm going with this? Okay.
Yes.
The learning environment. Did you welcome students? No, did you welcome some students?
Yeah.
Did you welcome all students?
Yes.
Which one? Some or all?
All.
Okay. Was it organized?
Yes, I had them in the groups. The lesson was well organized. Yes.
Okay. Did you have supplies, equipment, and resources accessible
Yes.
when everyone could get to what they needed when they needed to?
Um,
If
yeah.
if there was a need, yeah. If there
Yeah.
was, okay, yeah. Um, was the environment arranged to promote individual and group learning?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at that. Based on those descriptors,
Hmm.
would you still maintain that you are developing in that area, or would you consider yourself proficient?
I would consider myself proficient.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Okay. Absolutely. So you saw that process that we just went through?
Hmm.
I'm going to encourage you to do that for every area that you score yourself a 2.
Okay.
Okay. And we just did that for environment. It certainly could be done for assessment,
Okay.
standards, and objectives. You said 1 or 2.
Why did I say
Yeah, why did you say that? I was having a hard time choosing which rating best aligns with
that?
the
Okay.
list. And I feel like I would rate myself at a 2 for
Mhm.
half of the criteria in this indicator and a 1 for the other half of the criteria. And I think you probably said that because I don't think you stated the standard. Let's go back to that. We're going to go through that same exercise, okay?
Okay.
All right, so learning objectives and state content standards are not communicated, referenced, discussed, or displayed.
Hmm.
Is that true?
Um, no, that's not true.
Okay.
Well,
So, oh, you need time. Think about it.
oh yeah, I did have the standard on the board,
Okay.
but I didn't necessarily communicate it to the students.
Okay. So your learning objective was directly tied to the standard.
Hmm.
Did you state the objective and what the goal was for the day?
No, no, not during the lesson. No.
Okay. Now, let's talk about that a bit. Um, some candidates feel that it has to be very prescribed, meaning that when they introduce the lesson, maybe it's on a slide and you read it. Today, the learner will, or today's students will be able to do da 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 da. Okay.
Hmm.
That's one way of presenting the learning objective. Another way of presenting the learning objective is what you did as you set up the lesson. Is you
Hmm.
talked about what the goal for the lesson was. We're talking about systems of equations. Okay.
Hmm.
So you didn't directly name a standard.
Hmm.
You didn't necessarily read a learning objective, but it was definitely communicated.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would not say that wasn't done. I wouldn't, I mean, you did it, but it was more of a untraditional way or unconventional way, but it was stated. I knew
Hmm.
exactly what the goal was.
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to be careful of that. Okay. Some of the expectations for student performance are clear.
Hmm.
Is that
Um,
some of the some expectations for students' performance are clear.
I don't know if so. I guess when I think of that, I think of like explicitly either modeling what I want students to do or telling them what I expect them to do. And don't I don't think I've done that.
Okay, so
Like,
look, okay, I see where you're going. Okay, so this indicator only deals with standards and objectives.
yeah.
So what you're referencing has to do with another indicator, which is most likely aligned with presenting instructional content.
Okay.
So in terms of just standards and objectives,
Okay.
the expectations of what you want students to do, were they
Mhm.
clear?
Yeah, in the lesson plan when I have written them out, yes.
Yes, definitely. Okay, and was there evidence that some of the students demonstrated mastery of the objective?
Yes. As I
Okay,
looked at their exit tickets, yes.
okay. You not only did you look at their exit tickets, but also you included it in your lesson plans.
Hmm.
You talked about what mastery is going to look like.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of standards and objectives,
Hmm.
are you needing improvement in that area?
No.
Or,
Well, yes, because there's always room for improvement, but I don't think I would say a
yeah,
one or two more.
yeah.
Sorry. I would definitely wouldn't say it's a one or
Okay.
two.
Okay, that's good. What you say was a two. Are you developing in that area?
Um, ye- I would bump it up to a three
Thank
personally.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. Not only
Hmm.
are you thinking about what you're doing in real time and executing the lesson, also consider the pre-planning.
Yeah.
Is it evident in your lesson plans what the standards and the learning objectives are and what mastery is going to look like? Did you plan for it? And you did.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I can understand. I can see you're very hard on yourself and you're very literal, but I want you to think holistically. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So just to wrap this up, oh, almost 1:30. To wrap this up, I would say in terms of the area that I felt you did well in for reinforcement, instructional plans, absolutely. Um, presenting instructional presenting instructional content, absolutely. Environment, absolutely. Um, questioning, absolutely. But I would, if I were to highlight just one, I would probably um, list number 4, presenting instructional content. Okay.
Okay.
And just keep in mind, there may be a descriptor there that may need to continue to be developed, but for the most part, you're proficient in that area. Okay.
Okay.
And in terms of areas of refinement, probably I'm still teetering here. You do such a good job at questioning. I think I'm going to go with academic feedback only because I want those two to be more aligned.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any questions, comments, anything you need clarity on that may not have explained as well as I thought I did?
Um, no, I really do appreciate all the feedback. I feel like I got a lot of good feedback from you.
Okay.
So I really do appreciate it. I think I understand all the feedback you gave me. So
Okay. All right. So again, job well done. I'm excited for you remaining in the program. I definitely want you to continue, finish, and be in
yeah.
somebody's classroom in the fall.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. Uh, you are one that I'm not worried about. Okay, so I'm just going to continue to keep pushing you to um, not improve, not in the sense that you're at a deficit, but I just want you to be at full capacity in the fall because you definitely will be an asset to anybody's math program.
Yeah.
And let me ask you this: you definitely want to stay middle school?
Not definitely. I wouldn't mind doing high school.
Oh, good.
I think I would probably prefer middle school, but yeah,
Okay,
I'm open to both.
you're open. Okay, I can definitely see you in the algebra 1 classroom.
Okay.
Because Algebra 1 is a tested area and they need strong teachers that not only have a command of the learning environment and dealing with our kids, but
Hmm.
also content knowledge, and you have sound content knowledge. And so I
Okay.
want to, if I had to make a recommendation, I would recommend a ninth grade classroom.
Oh,
Definitely.
thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to type this up, finish my scoring. It will be into Vera. And so as I'm encouraging all students, just remember that after the break, and I want you to enjoy your break, that
Hmm.
we're going to come back and we're going to finish up and wrap up the semester. So any of those tasks that you can get completed off the exit checklist, go ahead and get those done because
Okay.
that will just make it easier after the break, quicker after the break. Okay.
Okay. I I think I have one question for the additional lesson plans that we have to do. We're just uploading that, right? Are we
Yeah.
doing
So
anything additional to that?
no,
Or-
just find two of the lesson plans that are in your folder and just
Okay,
upload them. Not the lesson evaluations, but any other lessons. It doesn't matter which one, just choose two.
right. Okay. I think that's all the questions I had for Tavera. Yeah.
Okay. It has been a pleasure.
Yes.
Absolutely. Again, not worried about you, just want you to remain in the profession.
Mm-hmm.
Going to advocate for you to be in somebody's classroom in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to stay in Memphis? You want to stay here in Memphis? Or
I do. Yes.
okay.
I actually applied to do a grad program through Memphis Teacher Residency.
Yeah,
Um,
interesting.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I got accepted for it. So I'll
Oh,
be doing that
wow.
next year. Mm-hmm.
And so that's where, because it has changed over the years. Are they still, is it like job embedded where you're teaching and going to school at the same time?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Oh, so they're gonna place you. Oh, yeah, no problem. Okay, yeah, they're gonna
Mhm.
place you. Okay, good. Just make sure you're in a, well, make sure you're in a place
Mhm.
where your assets will be valued and
Yes.
appreciated and
Yes.
exercised.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay.
Advocate for
Thank
yourself.
you.
Advocate for yourself.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
Thank you, Kymia. It's been a pleasure. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your break next week.
You too.
Okay. Thank you. Take
All
care.
right. Bye.